The Geet Ruler Episode Number 102 Explanation. The lush green spiritual energy that covered the entire sky flew out from those colossal trees that filled the region. They whistled through the horizon before gathering in the center of Mu Chen's palm. The lush green luster was like a huge vortex. Although it seemed gentle, it was emitting a ripple that could make others nervous. This is a divine art. Staring at the lush green spiritual energy of Mu Chen, Wen Qingxian could tell that those energies were not cultivated by Mu Chen himself, since they originated from the countless trees. What Mu Chen did was simply borrow their strength. Generally speaking, only divine arts could borrow such peculiar energy that existed in the world. It should be a lesser divine art. Luo Li replied softly. The so-called divine art was also further categorized. There were roughly 3 categories for it: lesser divine art, great divine art, and perfect divine art. Accurately speaking, such a method could only be utilized by genuine sovereign realm experts. However, once a person's strength had reached the 3 sovereign disasters, they could actually use it. However, it was just weaker and the might could not compete with sovereign realm experts. This divine art seems to be from the Divine Wood Palace. When Qingxian thoughtfully watched, such a method that utilized the strength among the tens of thousands of 3s seemed to be a method from the Divine Wood Palace. Luo Li lightly nodded her head. It seems that, not knowing when, Mu Chen had obtained a lesser divine art that originated from the Divine Wood Palace. Furthermore, looking at him, he had also actually succeeded in cultivating it. But, although the might of a divine art is pretty good, it requires time to execute it. However, I fear that the puppet will not give him the time to do so, said Wen Qingxian. Judging from the fight from before, that puppet possessed plentiful amount of fighting experience. Furthermore, it did not fear nor did it possess any emotions, so it would fight according to its fighting instincts. Sometimes, an existence like this that fights based on instincts are more fearsome. The lush green luster was like an ocean as it rippled around Mu Chen. The huge lush green vortex rapidly revolved in his palm. At the edge of the vortex, it seemed that there were faint traces of space being dragged along. Purple light flashed within the eyes of the puppet. Clearly, it could sense the danger that harbored in Mu Chen's palm from the lush green vortex. It did not hesitate further, and with a grasp of his palm, the black long spear shot over from behind the puppet and landed on its hand. In the next instant, it flew out like lightning without any hesitation. Rustle. The body of the spear trembled as it pierced the space. The spearhead was shrouded in black light as it seemed extremely sharp. Just as Wen Qingxian had expected, the puppet did not wait till Mu Chen was fully ready with his move. It did not hesitate and acted, intending to kill Mu Chen before he was done. The speed of the puppet was extremely fast and, in a flash, it appeared before Mu Chen. The spearhead shot out and was pointed towards Mu Chen's heart. The black light spear was growing before Mu Chen's pupils as light flickered among them. The light contained a trace of ruthless TCCIE. The light spear shot over. However, what they did not expect was that Mu Chen did not avoid the attack, nor did he activate any defenses. He extended his palm, and on his palm, there was black lightning violently flickering about. That arm of his turned brilliant and silvery. Chi-hi! Chi-i! In the instant the spear was about to reach, Mu Chen's hand grabbed onto that sharp spearhead as ear-piercing squeaking sounds rang out. Thereafter, blood constantly flowed down from Mu Chen's palm. Even if Mu Chen's lightning god's physique had reached Pentarune, he did not have the ability to ignore the attack of the puppet. Outside the spiritual treasure mountain, there were continuously cries of surprise. Many people had their faces slightly changed, as no one had imagined that Mu Chen would use his hand to block the attack of the puppet. Does he not fear that his arm would be crippled? Now, he has enough time. Luo Li faintly spoke. However, when Qingxuan's slender brow slightly trembled. He was indeed firm and decisive. When Qingxian nodded as she commented. Mu Chen's hand that was covered in blood grabbed onto the spearhead as pain came from his palm. The cold and sharp aura nearly destroyed his entire arm. Fortunately, just when he had utilized his lightning god's physique to his limits, his arm had become the strongest part of his body for that instant. Otherwise, his entire arm would have been turned to shreds in that instant. Boom! On his right palm, the huge green vortex was rapidly turning. Mu Chen looked at the puppet before him as he suddenly smiled. "I'll let you try the good stuff from your divine wood palace. Lesser divine art, divine wheel of the heavenly wood." A cold voice rang out from Mu Chen's heart. OMN. The lush green vortex rapidly turned, and under the high-speed rotation, it had tore through space. The edge of the vortex started to solidify as it turned into a huge green wood light wheel that was nearly 100 feet tall. The edge of the light wheel was filled with sinister saw blades. Because of the rapid speed, it was as if a serene light ray was rotating. An indescribable sharpness was being emitted from it. Mu Chen's eyes were cold. His hand that was dripped with blood was still tightly holding onto the spearhead. Shortly after, his palm suddenly locked down. The sinister and hair-tingling green wood saw turned into a green light as it tore through space and appeared above the puppet, sweeping down. The green light brought along a sharpness that could destroy anything as it swept down. That atmosphere that could not be blocked made everyone in the spiritual treasure mountain hold their breath. They all knew that if the puppet was hit by this fearsome attack, even if the puppet was made of metal, it would still be instantly sliced into half. Rustle. The wooden green light wheel was moving down at a rapid speed. In the next instant, it had appeared above the head of the puppet. However, just when it was about to sweep past the head of the puppet, dazzling black light burst out from the puppet. There was a metallic wing that appeared behind the puppet that abruptly shot out. The metallic wing trembled as the puppet strangely disappeared. Rustle. The green wood light wheel swept across the air before hitting the ground. There wasn't any cracks on the ground, it only left behind a long, slim and deep mark on the ground. That mark was extremely smooth, as if the depths of it could not be seen. Aside from the smooth surface, it was emitting a frightening penetrative power. This ultimate move of Mu Chen's had landed empty. Outside the spiritual treasure mountain, the heart of every team heavily jumped. The intense battle had unknowingly sucked their attention. Just when they thought that Mu Chen had failed in his attack, they felt as if they were in Mu Chen's shoes. In their hearts, it was hard to bear. What a pity. Someone sighed. The control of Mu Chen's move earlier on could be described as perfect. However, no one had expected that the puppet would also save something. How is that a puppet was simply more frightening compared to a warrior that had gone through 100 battles? Clearly, after losing this chance, Mu Chen's victory would become much lower. The faces of Xu Huang and the rest turned pale. When Qing Xian softly sighed. Only Luo Li maintained her silence. Under the countless gazes of pity, Mu Chen stood on his actual spot. His face smeared across with paleness. His gaze swept around and the figure of the puppet had already disappeared. However, Mu Chen could sense a trace of black line traveling about. The speed was too fast for his eyes to follow. Even if the puppet possessed the strength of first-grade spirit disaster, it could be considered as the hardest to deal with. Mu Chen's muscles tensed up tightly, as if it was a fully pull-and bow. He could sense the faint cold killing intent from his surroundings. He knew that the puppet would unleash its killing move next. Both of Mu Chen's eyes were tightly shut. He could sense the flow of the wind from the outside. Thereafter, the hurricane-like spiritual energy that was around his body started to retract, little by little, because he had actually removed his defenses. Looking at his actions, even when Qing Xuan's face changed. Under these circumstances, the instant Mu Chen's flaw was grasped by the puppet, the attack that would be coming towards him would definitely be extremely astonishing. That move would probably end Mu Chen. What is he doing? Is he seeking death? When Wang Zhong and his group saw Mu Chen's actions, they frowned their brows. Wu Yingying's charming eyes were closely fixed onto that figure as she clenched her teeth. Why did that bastard suddenly become a fool? Wu? Wu? The sounds of the wind became even more rushed on the stone platform. There was a small amount here that could vaguely sense that faint shadow. Even people like Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying could only vaguely sense a black streak of light. However, they could not tell the direction of that shadow. Wu? The sounds of wind became even more rushed as fine cracks appeared on the space. Formless air rippled before Mu Chen as a black figure had appeared before him as if it was teleporting. It straightened both its fingers as spiritual energy surged. It was like a dagger that was emitting heavy killing intent and pointed towards the center of Mu Chen's brows. That attack was too fast and too sudden. At such a distance, even an expert of spirit disaster could not avoid it. One blood trace flowed from the center of Mu Chen's brows as if it was caused by the sharp gale. "It's over," the faces of Xu Huang and the rest turned pale. Everyone else also sighed in pity. When Qing Xuan's jade-like hands tightly grasped, veins popped on her fair skin as a golden light could not help flowing around. The puppet's finger wind was so close to the middle of Mu Chen's brows, he could have his brains penetrated the next instant. However, in this instant, Mu Chen's closely shut eyes abruptly opened. There wasn't any panic in his eyes, but a ridiculing smile, as if he was looking at a prey. Under the countless gazes, his hand rapidly formed hand signs. Boom! The ground under his feet suddenly trembled. Shortly after, there was a lush green light that abruptly burst out. It was like a light saw that shot out in front of Mu Chen. It had also wiped across the body of the puppet. The body of the puppet froze as the sharp wind that was formed on its fingertips dissipated. Plop! Although its fingers were on the center of Mu Chen's brows, there was no strength behind it as the body of the puppet was split into two. The cut was as smooth as a mirror. Up in the sky, the ferocious wheel lightly trembled before it disappeared. Mu Chen looked at the puppet with no light as he faintly smiled. "This is the real attack." Up in the sky, the huge green wood light wheel disappeared as lush green light fell from the sky, completely shrouding the figure below. There was complete silence outside the spiritual treasure mountain as the faces of those teens were ugly. The scene before them seemed to have surpassed their expectations. It should have been a situation where Mu Chen died. But the facts were twisted as the powerful puppet was split into two. What was with the green wooden light wheel? Didn't Mu Chen's attack miss, and why did it appear again? Daze was shown on the faces of those people. Clearly, they had not recovered from the sudden change of events. When Qing Xuan's slender eyes focused onto the figure and softly said, purposely throwing the green wooden light wheel into the ground, "How smart." After that finishing move, there was actually another finishing move buried below. When that green wooden light wheel missed, Mu Chen did not immediately take any action, but had hidden in the ground as he was well aware of how frightening the speed of the puppet was. If it was instantly exposed, it would probably still be impossible to attack that puppet. Thus, he waited for a chance and, at the same time, he removed his defenses to bait the puppet. Only at the moment when the puppet attacked, he would have his chance to kill it. From that method alone, it contained his courage and unwavering spirit. Perhaps it could also be called self-confidence. However, it was something that made others astonished. After all, from the looks of his earlier attack, it was already as fast as lightning. Perhaps, at that time, even Mu Chen had not expected that the puppet could avoid that attack that he had been planning for so long. Despite that, he was not being complacent in the slightest. Beyond his finishing move, there was another one which dealt with his opponent. It could not be said to be on purpose. It was just a habit of his to be safeguarded. Luo Li said softly. However, when Qing Xian could see the chest of the girl slightly rising up and down and within her tone, there was an ease in it that was hard to detect. Clearly, the girl's heart was not serene when Mu Chen fought with the puppet earlier. Indeed, worthy of his fame as the spiritual road's blood calamity. When Qing Xian sweetly smiled as she continued, if he was not expelled from the spiritual road, the current him would be even more powerful. Perhaps I would not be the final champion of the spiritual road. The strength that Mu Chen had shown made when Qing Xian more or less startled. The courage and self-confidence that he had shown in the battle made her eyes light up. At the back, Wang Zhong's eyes were solemn as he watched. Although the twists and turns in the battle were brilliant, what he wanted to see wasn't that. He would be more happy to see Mu Chen being defeated by the puppet and imprisoned. Furthermore, from the methods that Mu Chen had revealed, a layer of cautiousness and fear rose in his heart as he knew that if he was the one fighting with the puppet, he would definitely not be able to accomplish what Mu Chen did. That fellow. His eyes were dark as he stared at Mu Chen. Why is this new generation so hateful? Even that fellow Ji Xian is the same. Compared to Wang Zhong's darkness, Wu Yingying's eyes, however, were complicated. She stared at Mu Chen with her teeth clenching. Hatred filled her oval face, and vaguely, there were some other emotions that were hard to sense. Perhaps she would not admit that she admired him. Although that fellow did all those hateful things to her, she had to admit that he was exceptionally outstanding. Back then, in the spiritual road, Wu Yingying nearly went crazy from all those things that Mu Chen had done to her. Thus, she searched around for Mu Chen after that to take revenge for her shame. However, the spiritual road was so vast and she could not accomplish what she wished. When she heard of Mu Chen's name again, he was already removed from the spiritual road. However, she further found out that Mu Chen had the title of Blood Calamity of the spiritual road. When she found out about that calamity, she was undoubtedly startled, as Mu Chen did not commit such frightening acts when she encountered the latter. Otherwise, she would not have been released after being teased. She had also clearly not expected that she would encounter that hateful fellow here. Also, that fellow had also changed a lot over the years. He was no longer the soft and immature guy that she met back then. When he was serious, there was a blade-like chillness that made his originally charming face even more charming. Pooh! As her thoughts traveled to this point, Wu Yingying's face flushed red and immediately spat. She could not help wishing that she could tear that fellow to shreds. How could I have such thoughts? Behind her, when Deng Tong and the rest saw the change of expression on the girl before them, they exchanged looks, but did not dare to interrupt her. Mu Chen stood on the stone platform as he looked at the puppet that was split in two and lightly breathed out in ease. He wiped the trace of blood off the center of his brows. The puppet was, indeed, strong. However, it was still just a puppet. Although it could rely on its instincts to fight, it was still unable to be compared to a normal human. However, Mu Chen had to admit that the damnable puppet was hard to deal with. However, I have finally dealt with it. Mu Chen curled his lips as he kicked the puppet away. Thereafter, he raised his head and looked at the brilliant light at the end of the stone platform. Within that jade stone lotus, there was the 9 Suns Divine Lingji. Its branch and leaf were swaying with penetrative sparkle. It was like a sun as it slowly wavered, emitting extremely frightening spiritual energy ripples. The 9 Suns Divine Lingji. The spiritual treasure that he had been yearning for was finally his. He stepped out as he approached the 9 Suns Divine Lingji. However, just when he was about to approach the 9 Suns Divine Lingji, a light suddenly gathered at the side of the jade stone platform. This sudden change instantly made Mu Chen startled. Could it be that despite him defeating the puppet, he still could not obtain the 9 Suns Divine Lingji? Light slowly gathered under Mu Chen's cautious gaze. Shortly after, the light formed into that white-haired elder. Mu Chen looked at that white-haired elder in alert as he cupped his hands. Senior, I have defeated the puppet, so I believe that the 9 Suns Divine Lingji should be mine, right? Although he knew that the white-haired elder was only a spiritual image left behind that did not possess any intelligence, he still maintained being courteous. That white-haired elder did not speak and only looked at Mu Chen. Mu Chen frowned his brows, and shortly after, he saw the eyes of the white-haired elder narrow as he realized that within the eyes of the white-haired elder, there seemed to be something else there. He was no longer the dead person without any emotions that he was before. I never thought that I would see someone that could utilize the divine out of our divine wood palace again. The white-haired elder's mouth trembled. Shortly after, a hoarse voice resounded. Mu Chen's face changed as he looked at the white-haired elder that stood before him in astonishment. When the elder spoke this time, there were actually emotions in his voice. The current him was no different than a living person. The white-haired elder actually still possessed intelligence. Don't panic. You have awoken a strand of my conscious when you used the divine out of our divine wood palace. This conscious of mine will soon disappear. The white-haired elder said softly. Mu Chen then felt relieved and asked, May I ask the name of yours, honorable senior? Even the divine wood palace is gone. There's nothing good to remember my name bu. The white-haired elder sighed. His voice contained age as he continued, You are a pretty decent sapling. Pity that you are not a disciple of my divine wood palace. He felt pity. His conscience was awakened when Mu Chen used the divine wheel of the heavenly wood. Likewise, he had also seen the battle between Mu Chen and the puppet. Mu Chen was stunned. He could tell that there was something hidden from the white-haired elder's words. His eyes quickly blinked twice and smiled. If this senior is willing, I can be a disciple of the divine wood palace in the records. The white-haired elder smiled as he stared at Mu Chen. You truly are a smart little fellow. Mu Chen chuckled. The white-haired elder was clearly a stubborn old man. Now that the divine wood palace was gone, there was no issue in him becoming a disciple in the records of the divine wood palace. Clearly, Mu Chen's words were to the taste of the elder. Otherwise, no matter how much he admired Mu Chen, he would not show any signs. The white-haired elder brushed his beard as he made a flick with his fingers. A green light shot out from his fingertips and shot into the center of Mu Chen's brows. Shortly after, the runes of an ancient rune appeared in the center of his brows and quickly disappeared. Your divine wheel of the heavenly wood must have been obtained from the divine wood quota. Similar divine arts are also present in the other divine wood quotas. Mu Chen nodded his head as it was one of his guesses. If chances surface, perhaps you can obtain the 5 other lesser divine arts that are in the 5 other divine wood quotas. The thing that I gave you earlier could help you combine them. At that time, you will get a little surprise. The white-haired elder smiled as he spoke. Many thanks, senior. Mu Chen was overjoyed in his heart as he immediately cupped his hands. The white-haired elder waved his hand and his palm lightly pat onto the jadestone lotus. He saw a brilliant light being emitted from the lotus platform. That gigantic lotus platform rapidly shrank along with the 9 suns divine Lingxi within it. In a few breaths' time, the lotus platform turned into the size of a palm with the 9 suns divine Lingxi inside. The white-haired elder waved his robes and the jadestone lotus platform flew towards Mu Chen. The latter received it excitedly as he had finally obtained the 9 suns divine Lingxi. Go, if you want to obtain the true inheritance of the divine wood palace, you will have to depend on your strength. The white-haired elder inhaled a deep breath as he closed his eyes, how reminiscing. Mu Chen could see that the eyes of the white-haired elder quickly dulled as it restored the emptiness that was originally inside. Clearly, the remnant conscious of the elder disappeared. Mu Chen stored the jadestone lotus platform before bowing towards the white-haired elder and flew off of the stone platform. Mu Chen flew off of the stone platform under the countless gazes that were filled with fear. He returned to the side of Luo Li and Wen Qingxian as he smiled towards the 2 girls. By luck, I was able to accomplish it. I suppose that I was not too embarrassing, right? Luo Li smiled as she nodded. SOSO, there's nothing to smirk about. If it was me who was in your position, there was no way that the puppet could force me to such an extent. When Qingxuan's lips rose. Her pride wouldn't allow her to admit that Mu Chen truly was powerful. Although he was still somewhat capable for being able to defeat the puppet. Mu Chen helplessly smiled. After all, there was still some distance between his cultivation and Wen Qingxian. If he possessed the strength of spiritual energy disaster, it would be much easier for him to deal with the puppet. So are you guys going to try out as well? Mu Chen looked towards Luo Li, Wen Qingxian, Xu Huang, and the rest. According to the rules of the spiritual treasure mountain, he had already succeeded his challenge and obtained the 9 suns divine Lingxi. Therefore, he could not challenge again. However, Luo Li and the rest still had a chance. There was still quite a bit of rare spiritual treasures in the spiritual treasure mountain. If they could obtain them, their strength could have quite a bit of increase. Wen Qingxian and Luo Li nodded without hesitation. Since they were already here, they could not return empty-handed. Although Mu Chen had already taken the best that the spiritual treasure mountain could offer, the 9 suns divine Lingxi, there were still other precious treasures that are worth quite a decent amount. We can as well. Xu Huang and the other 2 hesitated as they exchanged looks. After all, the consequences to their failure was too dire. Challenge according to your strengths. As long as you guys don't aim too high, it should still be possible for success. Mu Chen smiled. Good. Xu Huang and the other 2 grounded their teeth. Wen Qingxian and her team of girls did not plan to give up. If they were scared of it, it would be too shameful for them. When Mu Chen spoke, the atmosphere outside the spiritual treasure mountain became lively. The miserable situation that they had seen seemed to have been dulled by a lot when Mu Chen took his victory. Some people regained their rationality. Although they did not dare to challenge rashly, they started to obtain some spiritual treasures. Let's go. When Mu Chen saw that the mood of the other teams was recovering, he smiled as he urged. Luo Li and Wen Qingxian nodded their heads. Shortly after, their figures turned into streaks of light and charged towards the 8th level of the spiritual treasure mountain. Only this level was something that they could consider, since the 9 Suns divine Lingxi had already been taken. Seeing as Luo Li and Wen Qingxian had acted, Pinna, Le and Wei had also acted. They chose the 6th level, since the puppets on that level possessed the strength of spiritual energy disaster. With the sufficient amount of methods that they had, there was nothing that they would fear. Xu Huang and the other two, however, were slightly weaker compared to them. Therefore, they could only choose the 5th level, since the puppets there possessed the strength of human body disaster. It was something that they could manage. Their actions had broken the atmosphere in this region as the other teams could not hold back and also turned into streaks of light as they flew into the spiritual treasure mountain. Among those groups, the speed of Wang Zhong and Wu Yingying was the fastest as they entered the 8th level. Clearly, they had confidence in their strength. Thereafter, the atmosphere in the spiritual treasure mountain became heated up. Ferocious battles broke out from the stone platform. However, the current situation was much better. After estimating the strength of the puppets, the chances of victory rose. Aside from a few unfortunate fellows that could not perform in the battle, a majority of them clinched victory and obtained a spiritual treasure of their choice. Gales swept out from the stone platform from the many joyful faces. Outside the spiritual treasure mountain, the entire region was filled with celebration. Naturally, there were some who were dejected and depressed. The faces of those pale-faced teams lost their teammates without being able to obtain any spiritual treasures and had lost them to imprisonment. So as to say, their steps in the Great Spiritual Academy tournament were halted. Luo Li and Wen Qingxian also returned with victory. Although the puppets that they faced were powerful, they did not possess the strength of first-grade spirit disaster. Therefore, it was easy for them to clench their victory. It was 2 complete situations, compared to Mu Chen's. What did you guys get? Mu Chen was a little curious. Luo Li smiled as light gathered in her hand. A jade stone lotus platform appeared and within it was a fiery red vine. The vine was like a scarlet dragon, since there were small scales on the surface on the vine. Within the vine, there was lava flowing in it, emitting blazing ripples from it. This is a scarlet dragon vine that lives in the lava. The lava fluid of it possesses the usage of refining the spirit. If it is refined, it could enhance the spirit, allowing one to have more success when undergoing the spirit disaster, said Luo Li. Mine is an iceberg snow spiritual fruit. Mine is in contrast to Luo Li's scarlet dragon vine. However, it also possesses quite a bit of benefit for the spirit. It is definitely a good item for spirit disaster. Within Wen Qingxuan's jade-like hands, there was a fruit that was as white as a jade. It seemed to be wrapped by ice and snow as if there was a chill flowing inside. Not bad. Mu Chen praised. It was definitely beneficial for them to obtain powerful spiritual treasures that enhanced the spirit. Not long after Luo Li and Wen Qingxian had returned, Pinna, Xu Huang and the rest had also passed through their challenges. Looking at the joy in their eyes, clearly they had a decent harvest, which made Mu Chen smile. It seems like they have struck gold in their visit to the spiritual treasure mountain. Shoo! The intense battle of the spiritual treasure mountain had come to an end. Wang Zhong and his group had also returned. Traces of battle could be seen from his body. Clearly, he had undergone an intense battle. Let's go. The moment Wang Zhong came out, he gave Mu Chen a dark glance. There was caution in his eyes and shortly after, he waved his hand and left at a rapid speed, along with the 2 groups of the Saint Spiritual Academy. They also had quite a bit of harvest. Adding on to his weakened situation after his battle, Wang Zhong was not worried that Mu Chen would attack them. After all, there was only one chance in entering the spiritual treasure mountain. Which also meant that if they did not rob the treasures that the other teams had obtained, one team could only obtain 5. Mu Chen glanced at their leaving back figures and faintly smiled. He did not obstruct Wang Zhong as the latter had expected. Many people had complicated gazes about the 9 Suns divine Lingxi that he had previously obtained. Therefore, many people were hiddenly coveting after it. Although their formation was so strong that those fellows would not easily attack them, the instant his flaws were captured by them, perhaps they would cause a decent amount of trouble for him. Therefore, this was not a time to act. After obtaining the 9 Suns divine Lingxi, Mu Chen was not too concerned about the other treasures. Behind Wang Zhong, Wu Yingying and her team returned. She glanced at Mu Chen as she softly snorted. Thereafter, she rapidly left with the members of the Martial Spiritual Academy. Looking at her leaving figure, Mu Chen helplessly shook his head. He did not have any malice with Wu Yingying. But it seemed that the girl had rather ill feeling towards him. What? You don't bear to part with her? When Qingxian chuckled as she continued, do you know who Wu Yingying's older brother is? Her older brother. Mu Chen was stunned and shortly after, a person's name came out from his mouth, Wu Ling. Mu Chen wasn't a stranger to Wu Ling. He had fought with him in the spiritual road. Therefore, he was well aware that Wu Ling was very powerful. Speaking from a certain angle, Wu Ling wasn't inferior to Ji Xian. Such an opponent was someone that even Mu Chen did not wish to provoke. Thus, even if Mu Chen had fought with Wu Ling in the spiritual road, it was just a small scuffle compared to Ji Xian. So there wasn't any huge grudges between them. However, he had never expected that Wu Ling would be the older brother of Wu Yingying. This made him feel a headache. If Wu Ling knew that his younger sister was teased by him before, God knows what he would do. You're really unlucky. All those difficult people from the spiritual road have all become your enemy. When Qingxian took joy in Mu Chen's misfortune as she said. Yeah, but you, the most dazzling champion of the spiritual road, is my biggest opponent. Mu Chen smiled as he stared at Wen Qingxian. What he meant was not the peculiar thoughts that Wen Qingxian had shown for Luo Li, what he meant was another matter. Although they were currently working together with Wen Qingxian, when the final battle comes, he and Wen Qingxian would probably be enemies. Furthermore, the fear that Mu Chen had for her wasn't inferior compared to Ji Xian, Wu Ling, and all those powerful figures from the spiritual road. That is indeed a regret. If I have the chance, I would definitely not hold my hands back. Wen Qingxuan's mouth curled up. What should we do next? Luo Li looked at the two of them opposing each other. She helplessly smiled as she shifted the topic. Mu Chen rubbed the center of his brows. There was the tree rune that was left behind by the white-haired elder. Within the tree rune, Mu Chen had obtained quite a bit of news of the Divine Wood Palace. Therefore, he was now well aware of the location that the inheritance of the Divine Wood Palace. He raised his head and looked towards the southwest direction as lush green spread through the horizon. According to the information that he had obtained from the rune, there was a special location in this remnant. At that direction, it was one of the important places of the Divine Wood Palace. It was said that a huge amount of sovereign spiritual liquid was hidden there. The sovereign spiritual liquid left behind by an ancient force was something that could make every sovereign realm expert tempted by it. Therefore, Mu Chen was not an exception. 10 streaks of light flew across the horizon up in the sky of the lush green forest. Sharp gales of wind that was ear-piercing swept out. The 10 streaks of light were naturally Mu Chen and his group that had left the spiritual treasure mountain. As he had obtained the information of the Divine Wood Palace from the white-haired elder, it saved Mu Chen the time to search around aimlessly. He had directly brought his group towards the location where some treasures were located. Just like the place that they were going to next, a place called the Hidden Spiritual Courtyard. The Hidden Spiritual Courtyard was extremely important in the Divine Wood Palace. It was not at all inferior to the spiritual treasure mountain. Within the Hidden Spiritual Courtyard, there were large amounts of sovereign spiritual liquid left behind. Generally speaking, it was the most tempting part of a large force. The sovereign spiritual liquid was a bizarre item. Even in the vast Great Thousand World, it was still something that was used to measure the strength of a force. The sovereign spiritual liquid was something that only sovereign realm experts could refine. A rank 1 sovereign could only refine 1 drop of sovereign spiritual liquid in 1 month. One could tell how precious the sovereign spiritual liquid was. When a person's strength passed through the 3 sovereign disasters, the sovereign spiritual liquid would be crucial. After all, if one wished to step into the realm of sovereign, they would require a large amount of sovereign spiritual liquid. Only the powerful and pure energy of the sovereign spiritual liquid could allow someone to thoroughly change and step into the realm of sovereigns. This realm was a huge game changer in the path of cultivation. Only by truly stepping into the realm of sovereigns could one possess the qualifications to travel the great thousand world. Only those of that level could be called experts and receive the respect of others. Therefore, countless people have had the sovereign realm as their target. However, who knew how many of those talented youths were stopped before their step towards that realm? That realm didn't only need talent, it needed a large amount of resources, and a large amount of those resources meant the sovereign spiritual liquid. Ordinary forces could not nurture sovereign realm experts. Only those powerful forces could create a sovereign realm expert. Among the great thousand world, even some sovereign realm experts would serve those powerful forces for the sake of sovereign spiritual liquid, becoming the servants or elders. They were using their own strength to trade for the sovereign spiritual liquid, an essential resource. Furthermore, the symbol of a sovereign realm, the sovereign celestial body, also required a large amount of sovereign spiritual liquid. The more powerful the sovereign celestial body, the requirement of sovereign spiritual liquid would also increase. It was said that amongst the 99 sovereign celestial bodies, the last one would already require thousands of drops of sovereign spiritual liquid. 1,000 drops of sovereign spiritual liquid, if it was a rank 1 sovereign realm expert refining it, it would take 10 years to produce that amount. Therefore, sovereign spiritual liquid was something that could not be lacked. That was precisely the reason why the moment Mu Chen knew of the hidden spiritual courtyard with the sovereign spiritual liquid left behind from the Divine Wood Palace, he did not hesitate to rush over. He was already at human body disaster at this moment, a step closer towards the sovereign realm. Furthermore, the place that his mother originated from was extremely frightening, and he could not get any help from that place. So much so that if he was discovered by someone of that place, his outcome would definitely not be good. Otherwise, his mother would not have left him when he was young. Mu Chen turned into a streak of light as he flew across the horizon. Looking afar, he deeply inhaled a mouthful of air. His hand slowly clenched tightly. He, who was without any background, could only rely on himself. Behind him, Luo Li, Wen Qingxian and the rest of the group closely followed. Wen Qingxian had shown more interest to the sovereign spiritual liquid compared to the spiritual treasure mountain. Clearly, she was also well aware of the importance that the sovereign spiritual liquid held. Therefore, she did not have any objections towards Mu Chen's leading this time around. On the contrary, she even hurried the rest to speed up, in case there was nothing left for them if they were late. The group of people increased their speed as they streaked across the horizon. Along the way, they saw quite an amount of shining spiritual lights. Those were clearly treasures that had been found, and there were people fighting over them. However, Mu Chen and his group did not pay any attention to them as they maintained their speed towards the hidden spiritual courtyard. Compared to the sovereign spiritual liquid, those things were not as attractive. As Mu Chen and his team were speeding up, they gradually slowed their speed after about 20 minutes. Mu Chen's figure dove as he headed for a mountain peak. Thereafter, his gaze was shifted up ahead of him. It was a patch of lush green spiked trees. Those spiked trees were black in color and they were filled with extremely sharp spikes. The looks of it gave others a sensation of chill. There were also purple lights flickering off the spikes. Those were clearly poisonous. Mu Chen's line of sight passed through the towering spiked trees and towards the depths. Vaguely, he could see traces of an ancient hall. However, that ancient hall was surrounded by the dense spiked trees, similar to a hedgehog. The hidden spiritual courtyard should be in the deepest part of this spiked tree forest. Mu Chen pointed towards the depths of the spiked tree forest as he spoke. Let us hurry, then. Xu Huang and the rest were overwhelmed by their excitement as they intended to fly over the spiked tree forest. Wait. Mu Chen, however, stopped them as he frowned. There seems to be something wrong about this place. He could vaguely sense that there was a peculiar ripple coming from the vast spike tree forest. The ripples belonged to someone familiar to him. Mu Chen wrinkled his brows as he muttered to himself. Suddenly, his palm clenched and a longsword spiritual artifact appeared in his hands. He transferred his spiritual energy into it, before he shot the longsword forward. The longsword that contained his spiritual energy flew towards the skies of the densely packed spike tree forest. Shoo! Just as the longsword spiritual artifact shot towards the skies, Mu Chen and his group saw that the spiritual energy that was within the longsword instantly disappeared. Thereafter, the longsword spiritual artifact fell from the sky, since it had lost the support of spiritual energy, falling into the forest. Thereafter, it was pierced by the spike trees. Hiss! Xu Huang and the rest inhaled a mouthful of chilled air. Those spike trees were too sharp. Although that sword was just a low-rank spiritual artifact, it was not made of tofu. Furthermore, why did the spiritual energy on the spiritual artifact suddenly disappear? What's going on? When Qingxian asked with her brows wrinkled. Mu Chen frowned as he looked towards the distance. There was a group that was looking over at this direction without any idea what was going on. He waved his hand as spiritual energy swept out and forcefully captured one of the people in that team. What is going on here? When that youth saw that Mu Chen had easily captured him, he raised his hand immediately and spoke, "We don't have any malicious intent, we were just taking a look here. Furthermore, this region could not be easily entered by anyone. The moment one steps into the region, their spiritual energy would disappear." Mu Chen released him as he narrowed both his eyes and said softly, "So that's the case. This region should be covered by a sealing spiritual array." No wonder he felt that the ripples were familiar, so it was the sealing spiritual array. Sealing spiritual array? Luo Li was a little astonished as she continued, "From the type of spiritual array, the grade is definitely not low. Looks like it should be left behind by the Divine Wood Palace." Mu Chen nodded in agreement. A sealing spiritual array of such a range was probably something that could be done with several spiritual array grandmasters. All of them that had participated in the Great Spiritual Academy tournament absolutely did not have the capability to accomplish such a feat. Seems like we can't fly over it. Otherwise, we would fall the instant our spiritual energy disappears. Our outcome would probably be no different compared to that spiritual artifact, said Mu Chen. But from the looks of it, we would not be able to use any spiritual energy the instant we enter the forest. When Qingxian said with her brows frowned. The power that she took the most pride in was her powerful spiritual energy. The instant she lost that advantage, her strength would fall by 70 to 80%. Mu Chen nodded and shortly after, he was a little dazed. Doesn't that mean that this was something similar to the spiritual road? Except that the spiritual road was definitely way more dangerous compared to this area. I'd advise you guys not to enter. The youth from before spoke. Why? This region was already occupied by the Academy Alliance. They had the advantage of numbers. You guys definitely can't win against them. That youth sneaked a few peeks at Wen Qingxian and Luo Li before continuing, perhaps they do not dare to provoke you guys outside of here. But if you enter, then you can't say for sure. There were a few batches that came before you, but they were defeated by the Academy Alliance. They seemed to be prepared, since they chose several fellows that cultivated their physiques. Even if they lose their spiritual energy, they are still powerful. Mu Chen furrowed his brows. Those fellows from the Academy Alliance. Xu Huang and the rest that stood by the side had ugly expressions on their face. They did not excel at the cultivation of physiques. The instant they lost their spiritual energy, they would land in a pretty bad situation if they were to face those fellows that were more powerful than them. This damnable place is truly troublesome. Luo Li also looked at Mu Chen. From the situation, their advantage from their valiant formation had decreased. If they still insisted on entering, they would fall right into the trap of the Academy Alliance. Mu Chen looked at the pitch-black spike trees as he pondered for a brief moment, before he opened his mouth. "I'll enter alone, the rest of you remain outside." This episode ends here. Thank you for watching.